Hi, I'm Seamless, and today is actually Friday, which means it's time for a new How to Bass tutorial. And today, I'm going to show you how to make this sound. So this puts together a whole bunch of cool stuff that I think individually I may have done before, but I haven't sort of combined in this particular method. The beginning is a citrus. Pretty basic FM idea, just one oscillator on the other. The only sort of complicated part is that I'm using a very specific citrus feature, which is this ability to change the shape of the waveform without doing a lot of extra shenanigans. There might be some ways if you're using other FM synths to kind of like chain together FM to get it to sort of sound like this, but beyond the actual shape that I'm using, I mean, this is sort of triangle-esque, and the point of this shape is that it's an octave higher than the output oscillator. I've also changed some phases of things, starting phases of one oscillator together, which does sort of slightly alter the tone. As you can see, if I just kind of move it around. So it does sort of change it a little bit. But the primary thing that's causing it to sound the way that it does is the fact that it's an octave higher and a triangle, like based on a triangle kind of waveform. The octave higher thing, what that does is that it imparts a square-like sort of physiology to the waveform, and versus a saw type, which would have been if it were the regular octave level. Which, I mean, you might like, just in case you want to know how to do either one or the other. That's being distorted by some ye old regular wave shaping, and then it's going into a flanger. Now, I have this envelope controller here, and this controller is controlling the XY, the X mod, which is just changing the FM from the first oscillator, not doing a lot else from there. And then the X is also controlling these various shapes, which are changing envelopes rather, which are changing the listed parameters. The first two parameters that they're moving, besides the X of the besides the FM of the citrus, is the delay and the depth of the phaser. I have pretty high feedback on the phaser, which if we were to listen to it by itself, actually, let's do that for a second. Let's listen to what that sounds like coming straight out of the phaser. So that kind of weird, like pitching kind of strangeness is actually the flanger doing its thing. The delay and the depth both control the nature of the delay, which is how these kinds of plugins work. Things like choruses, flangers, phasers, they are delay-based plugins which delay the incoming sound and alter the echoes to create whatever various result they're trying to come up with. They're trying to sort of do. The feedback is essentially how long a delay lasts. Very short feedback will result in not something too incredible. Very long feedback we'll do that kind of stuff. So we had kind of like a middle of the road little area there. Other important things, I messed with the crossover, which changes like how sort of stereo it can be when you have the phase option engaged. If the phase was 0, it wouldn't be any stereo at all, and the change just wouldn't matter. But this changes essentially how like a little bit off phase it is, and it kind of pans it a bit. And the crossover changes how phasey it is, or panned it is. It's the parameters are not super well defined. Most flangers and phasers and choruses work on similar types of parameters. The ones that you really need to worry about are the things that control the delay, the depth, or the pitch difference, the feedback, and then the phase and the crossover is sort of panning. And if you don't want to deal with it there, you can deal with it in some other parts of stuff. Immediately after the phaser, the flanger, is this bandpass filter. So the bandpass filter, you can see there's two parameters coming in here. However, it's still just controlling the one motion of the filter. And the thing that's controlling is the frequency, sort of where it actually is, and then the width. The width is being modulated with it. I believe that's the last two guys. So this is just the actual frequency, which is not entirely 1-to-1, but close enough. And then this is the bandwidth, which is saying that as it gets higher, the bandwidth is larger. So higher frequencies are more open. And then when it gets lower, it's tighter. So the lower frequencies are like only 1 or 2 of them are being highlighted when it actually gets down there. And it moves as fast as you're moving it with, the actual motion of the automation, which as you can see is quite all over the place. Same thing, like because we're doing this with just the one X controller, all of these are moving together in exactly the same way. The next EQ, like I probably could have just done this in the same EQ, just change parameters, but it's easier to see that without the moving bandpass. This is before another distortion unit, which is only a little bit active, but the point of this is to kind of shape it so that the behavior into the distortion just suits your whatever you want the sound. It's really not a lot of science to that. Like if you hear a kind of like papery sort of distortion bringing down the sort of high mids is one thing. If it sounds a bit too like resonant and boomy, then bringing down the mids will be a little bit better. If it sounds way too round and only bassy, then bringing down the bass, it makes a lot of sense. This particular one, I high passed it because there were some like errant like super subs that weren't like part of the tone, but being down there because of the motion of the flanger, causing it to sort of just be there, and it's not something I really wanted. I would recommend that you replace the actual low end of all of this with a real sub. However, I kept in a little bit of it because the sort of the motion that it creates is pretty interesting, and I kind of liked how that looked. It's going into a reverb with very low diffusion and low high cut, and not a lot of high frequencies. This is just sort of give it the kind of this weird, like cavern-esque sense to it. It's very low all around and also fast, but they're long enough to give you sort of a little impart of. Feels very ethereal that way. And it's being compressed, just pretty normal looking compression. There's honestly not a lot of that. Monoing the lows and just separating the mids and the highs a bit. And then limiting on the highs. Like it's pretty sharp. It's a pretty sharp sound overall, so it's not just regular limiting is pretty okay. And this is just to maximize it so that it feels nice and punchy. Now, as far as the actual automation is concerned, this is actually a very like versatile sound, because a lot of these are very like whippy, that kind of stuff. And then there's more normal ones, and you can also do the fast, like the sharp ones. And also you can hold. And this all brings together like very distinct sounds, even from just a similar thing. It's all from just how the automation works. You also notice that I'm actually keeping it pretty low, all things considered. And the reason why I didn't just bring down the max level and go 100% is because sometimes you might want to go up that high. That's really just up to you about how you want certain things to sound. As a main sound, this will work out okay, and as a filler sound, you can go into some more extremes and actually like hit it real hard and make it sound like even a different sound, even though it is still the same sound. So it's a very efficient sound that way. Anyway, the concepts behind this are relatively simple. Like the FM is a little bit odd, like I mentioned, because of the citrus-esque idea of changing the shape of the waveform in that particular method. You could do that with Reverb actually pretty easily, I think. You just use a triangle wave and then the bend plus and minus on it, and then it would actually move it more or less in the same fashion. Beyond that, the main concept from the distortion here is that the modulator is 1 octave higher than the carrier, which you could do at anything that has FM at all is fine. And then distortion, and then flanger, and then automation of flanger, bandpass, pre-distortion EQ, distortion, reverb, compression. I'm laying that out to you in sort of general terms because I want to show you that you can absolutely do that with pretty much anything. This is an amalgamation of rather basic concepts, and I have not used anything that's really, truly unique to any one plugin. I mean, it would have been if Serum didn't exist, just because it's kind of hard to do with other stuff, but it's possible, as long as you understand how. It would even be possible to kind of create a similar idea using FM8 if you wanted to like work hard enough to do that. It's not exactly simple just because FM8 doesn't make the job easy, but it is possible. I'm just reiterating, you can. In any event, I am going to put this FLP up for download so that you can look at it if you like. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe and all that good stuff. And as usual, have a nice day.